To the Player Spotlight series here with Keon Sports. Tonight, perhaps one of the most influential managers of her time, Terri Runnels. You remember her as Marlena, wife of Goldust, real-life wife of Dustin Rhodes at the time. She's had a very special journey in the world of professional wrestling, and we couldn't be happier to have her on the show today. If you would like to contact the show, email me, Vince McKee, at CoachVin14@yahoo.com. Without any further ado, here she is, Terri Runnels. All right, on the hotline with us now is Terri Runnels. You guys definitely remember her as Alexandra York from WCW, and then her most famous role clearly was Marlena, the on-screen character partner of Goldust, and clearly real-life wife of Dustin Rhodes, part of the famous Rhodes family. Terri, welcome to the show, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Vince. I appreciate it. And I didn't. What was the first thing you said? Something about I don't know. It sounded very complimentary. So whatever you just said, thank you, dude. I appreciate it.
No, definitely. Thank you very much. Hey,
it makes a girl feel good.
Yeah, as well it should. Now, fresh out of high school, you take a job.
Oh, Lord, we're going back that far.
Just a little bit. Now, you take a makeup artist job at CNN in 1988, from what I understand, and you were doing this for a little bit for Larry King and some of the wrestlers as well. When Tony Schiavone came up to you, and you guys decided on this York Foundation gimmick along with Ole Anderson, how much convincing did it take you to become an on-screen character in the crazy world that we know of professional wrestling?
Well, I'm going to have to correct you on a few things. So,
please do.
I graduated when I was 17 years old from high school.
Okay.
And I mean, the diploma didn't touch me in the ass before I was out of my teeny tiny little town. And I had moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and I started college at a fashion college called Bauder Fashion College. And that was in 1984, not 88. So when I ended up going, I started CNN when I was 19, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Doing makeup, and that was back when CNN was called Chicken Noodle News. And everyone made fun of it, how who wants to watch news 24 hours a day? That'll never work, and all that kind of stuff. CNN certainly changed over the years, but back then it was apolitical. It was just whatever the news was, it was being reported, right? And what an electric place to work for, by the way. I mean, live news. Anyone who's never been in live TV, like wrestling is live, and the news like that, it's so infectious and so amazing, and I highly recommend it. But at a certain point, I've been makeup artist now for a while. They've transferred me up to Washington, D.C. to do Larry King's makeup. Now I come back down to Atlanta, and that's when Schiavone, which I love the man with all my heart and part of my liver, said, hey, I'm going to take you to lunch today. And I said, okay, great, awesome. And so that's when he proceeds to kind of lay out what they have discussed and what they want me to do. And so, the first question I asked was, what kind of money are you talking about? So we found something that I was comfortable with and they were comfortable with. And so for a while I was doing, God, this is horrible. I would wake up at between 2 and 3:30 in the morning. 2:30 and 3 in the morning. I had to be at CNN at 4 a.m. I had a 30-minute drive to get there. So I would be awake between 2:30 and 3 a.m., work my shift, get off at noon, and drive or fly wherever we had TVs. So there were times, Vince, when I would get back to my apartment and literally not have time to shower. Actually, that would be the only thing I had time to do. I wouldn't have time to lay down. It would just be shower and get back to CNN. It was crazy.
Wow.
Crazy. Yeah. And then I was I know we were in Alabama. I do not remember exactly which town. I think it was Montgomery. And all I remember is standing at Gorilla before we went out, Terry Taylor and I forget if it was Ricky and Tommy at that point. But anyway, I know it was Terri with me at least. But I remember hearing someone say, "Watch her. I don't think she's going to make it." And like as I'm walking to the ring, those words are like resonating in my noggin. And I get to the ring, and literally I'm holding on to the ring post. I'm not in character. I am like literally like a zombie. And when it was time to go back, when the match was done, which I had zero involvement in, I lost sight in one of my eyes. So they rushed me to the hospital, and they did all these tests, and every time they would try to do the MRI, I would be snoring so loudly it was vibrating. They couldn't do the MRI. They kept coming and saying, "Can you please try to stay awake?" And so they did all this battery of tests, and lo and behold, they're like, "There's nothing wrong with you. We just think you're exhausted, like you." And I was like, well, that certainly makes sense, because I burn the candle at both ends. So yeah, I totally get that. So I think I chased a rabbit instead of answering your question.
No, it's okay.
How long did it take them to convince me?
Sure.
When we got the money right, I was convinced. And then the only thing I came up with on that character was the name, Alexander York. And I came up with that because I thought it sounded like a good snotty heels name. So.
Oh, absolutely. And then it's unique to me as someone who's married with kids, and just the way, decisions in life are made sometimes, and sometimes you put family in front of money and as you go. So, Alexandra York was a very good character. People liked it. They hated it, and that's what you wanted. You wanted to be a heel. So my question is this. Eventually, you meet Dustin Rhodes, you marry Dustin Rhodes, and you take yourself off of TV, and obviously you decide to have a family. How tough was that decision, or how easy was that decision to say, you know what, I don't need to be a character on the show anymore. Let me just start a family with this man?
Well, I quit the show one night because Dusty did something that pissed me off, and to this day I can't remember exactly what it was. But I had already. I'm trying to think if I quit CNN before I quit wrestling. I think I might have quit wrestling before CNN. Anyway, I was just like, I don't have to do this. Back then the relationship between he and Dusty was not that great. And, I love Pops and I miss Pops. And this is not about, disparaging his name, because he is beloved and I still can't believe he's gone. His larger than life personality. It just seemed like he should always be here forever and ever. Are you still there?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I thought I lost you for a second. I'm sorry. Anyway, so yeah, one night he just said something that I was like, I don't have to be talked to this way or treated this way. And I walked out. And then, then after I left CNN, we decided we were going to have a baby, and it was little Dakota Avery Runnels, who's now 26. FYI, don't blink. You will have a 30-year-old and a 24-year-old before you know it. So
no.
Just literally cherish when you want to. When they're driving you the most crazy events, literally, I promise if you'll do this, you'll be so happy. Look at them, and instead of going, I want to just pop your head off right now, just say to yourself, they're going to be 30 years old, and I'm going to wish I savored every single moment, good, bad, and indifferent. I promise you, if you will do that, give it 30 seconds and just say that to yourself. They're going to be 30. Savor this moment. Find humor in it. Laugh about it. Savor it. And yeah, you'll be happy you did, because I would a million times over love to go back and just relive everything, and because I only had one child, and I remember an old lady saying to me, sweetie, don't blink your eyes, because, and I remember thinking at the time, old lady, if she would sleep through the night, I'd be happy, okay? I'm not worried. So, yeah, I would still go back and relive everything in slow motion and just cherish it even more than I did initially.
Well, I will be sure to do that. I can promise you. I am, I love every second with my kids, and yeah, I couldn't agree more. So, I wanted to ask you this question then too, and you could get into it as much as you want. Sound good?
Sure.
Okay. So, in his run in WCW, Dustin had a lot of great matches, a lot of great rivalries, a lot of great feuds, and it really seems strange to me that after had just got done with the feud with Arn Anderson and some of the bigger names in the company, out of nowhere in March of 1995, they put him in the back of a flatbed truck and he wrestles Barry Darsow in what is to this day known as one of the worst gimmick matches of all time and very unsafe for that matter. What did he tell you about that? Because and honestly, this led to him getting released from the company, no fault of his own, for blading. And then why didn't anybody stick up for him, like Dusty Rhodes, his father? Like, why do you feel all this happened? I mean, was he almost like set up to get fired? Because to me, it's just ridiculous.
It was crazy. Here's the deal. So when you have a match, you have an agent assigned to you, sure, right? If you are at that arena and because at an arena, there's always a boss over an agent. There's, several bosses over agents. However, when you are out in the backwoods of Georgia and you're in a flatbed and the highest person on the totem pole is your agent, you do what that agent says. You don't get out there and they tell you to get yourself and you go, I'm going to have to put a phone call in and just see if that's really what they want me to do. No, he did, as he was told and as he was supposed to do. That's what an agent is for. And, that doesn't mean that the wrestler doesn't have some say in what they do in their match. Of course they do. But when it comes down to something like that you're told to do, that, by the way, that was a no-no in the business. We didn't do that anymore. So for him to be told to do that was kind of like, okay. But yeah, I mean, we all knew we weren't supposed to blade, but when you're out and your agent tells you that's what you're doing, you think, oh, okay, well, I guess there's an exception to this because we're doing this crazy, match in the back of a pickup, an 18-wheeler flatbed. So I guess, they want us to go extreme or whatever. Anyway, so, yeah, I just remember being devastated, and Dustin was devastated because we have this brand new baby. Dakota was born Valentine's Day of 94. So, we have this little tiny baby that we brought into the world, and all of a sudden now Dustin has no job. And I remember calling my mom and just like bawling my eyes out, because at the time I wasn't working anywhere. Sure. I was a stay-at-home mom. And so... God, I remember like money being so tight, and then Dustin got a call from Vince, and just this is a total side note, but sure. Vince and back in the day, certainly way back then, this would be 1995. Mm-hmm. Vince and Linda were so much more involved on in almost everything that happened. They were just very involved. We were not so big at that point that they could not still be involved. So, they sent this Tiffany double silver, sterling silver baby rattle, a teething rattle. Uh-huh. And on the end of both circles, they had the WWF logo engraved into it. And it's like, I've never seen one before. I've never seen one since. But that's before we ever went to work for them. So, that was really a nice thing. And that was also before this whole thing happened, with the gigging and blading. And so it's not like, hey, he's a free agent, let's send the baby a rattle. And, so I always thought high of Vince and Linda and WWF. I just thought they were a class act. So yeah, it was scary as hell. And thank God Vince called and said, I have this crazy idea for you to do. And he did that. And then I came up with the, Marlena gimmick. I've told the story a bazillion times. Have you heard this story of Marlena or no?
No, I mean, I definitely have. I know some of our listeners may not. I always thought it was unique because Goldust, Dustin starts with the company in August, and they really pushed the homophobic button, and then all of a sudden in January, 3 months later, and obviously, I'm not trying to be too forward here, but so you have this guy in this costume, and then all of a sudden you have this unbelievably beautiful woman, I mean, just drop dead gorgeous, comes out with him to the Royal Rumble. It's you I'm referring to, and it just takes everybody like back, like what in the heck? And then when I researched it and then told the story of you smoking the cigar and liking the look, I mean, to me it seemed like it was all just meant to be. I mean, just amazing how that all worked out.
Yeah, I mean, have you heard me tell the story of the Barbie doll that was part of the visual impetus, or no?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell it to your listeners or no?
I mean, if you want, I was gonna kind of just ask
you. It's your interview. You ask me whatever. You go ahead.
Well, actually. So I have a question that I think is maybe a little bit more towards where I was going to go with that. Mm-hmm. So my question was too, and you could expound, was, was that the original plan, which you'll expound on that, but also how important was it to you as a mother to have the contract put in there that you didn't have to do the house shows, that you could be home with your daughter, because that was also almost unheard of at that time.
Well, I mean, that was the only way I would do it. That was my demand before signing anything. That had to be, part of my contract. That these were my exact words. I said, Vince, I'm a mom first, I'm a wife second, and I will bust my ass for you third. But I just want you to know where you are in the lineup. And yeah, I mean, there's just no way. I loved. So Dakota flew with me for quite a long time until she was old enough to start going to school, and then I had live-in nannies come in, but once she was not on the road with me and with the live-in nannies, before I ever hired anyone, I would say to them, you're going to have like this, there's going to be this duality. You're going to be like a mom and a dad 24/7 for 3 days, and then you're going to have almost nothing to do with my child. I mean, of course, it's not like you can't speak to my child, but the point was, anything that has to do with Dakota, I will do. I want to do. That's my job as a mom. Sure. So I would let them know that the minute I flew home, they would become like personal assistant. They would go to the grocery store, go to the make appointments for me, go to the post office, pick up the dry cleaning, whatever had to be done outside of the home or inside of the home. I had the nanny swap roles basically, and that meant for 4 days. 24/7, I was with my daughter. And if you are a 9-to-5 mom or dad, you know that you may be in the house for 7 days straight, but you've got work all day long, right? Mm-hmm. You get home late in the afternoons. Most people anyway, most 9-to-5ers, you have to, throw a load of laundry in, do a little house cleaning, get food on the table, work on homework, get baths. Like, it's really not quality time. It's kind of like this rush of finishing out the day and then reading books and tucking your kid in bed. And it's not a lot of quality time, right, until the weekend comes. And so I just always felt blessed that I got 4 days with my child, and it was uninterrupted. So I always thought that even though I had to leave her for like 3 days out of the week, I was the winner and she was the winner at the end of the day, basically.
Oh, absolutely. And then, it was around the same time, a little bit later in the WWE, WWF at the time. You were there with Goldust, and then they brought in Mark Marrow with his real life wife Rena Marrow, later on Rena Lesnar or whatnot. So there's been stories that she wasn't the easiest to work with. You seem like such a sweetheart, a genuinely nice person. You're there to be supportive and be a good on-air personality. What was Sable like to work with?
I wanted everyone to ask me this question. Okay, so this is the way I've always answered it, and it's just as honest as I can be about it. The reason I was never impressed with Rena was because she put her career in front of her daughter, and I just never, ever would do that. I remember her saying to me one time, I didn't realize that she had been on the road for some god awful time. Like way back in the day, they used to be on the road for months at a time. Mm-hmm. Then back in the mid 90s, late 90s, they were still doing some 11-day tours, 15-day tours, 18-day tours, where you're not home for all those days, right?
Yeah.
And I found out that Rena had been with Mark on all of those, like that whole tour.
Wow.
And I was like, Rena, I said this to her, I'm like, Rena, how can you leave Mariah for that many days? Her words to me were, Mark needs me. And I immediately spat back and said, need you for what? What would he need you more than Mariah would need you for? She's like, well, I have a hot plate and I like making some food and cooking some eggs in the hotel rooms and stuff. And then I make sure I got him in the gym and nothing she said, like Martin Arrow didn't need his ass wiped is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it just, I remember thinking, what kind of a mother are you? Like, I just never had any respect for her after that, Sure. So, I just, and then, the way in which she left Mark for Brock, and I don't have a lot of respect for Brock. I don't think Brock respects wrestling fans. Brock did something that was in today's day and time, he showed his penis to me and, called my name as I was walking past where he was in a dressing room and opened his towel so I could see his manly bits. And, I've often said when I actually tell that story, I've often said mm-hmm. that, and this is, of course, me being absolutely a smart ass when I say it, because I would have much rather him not been sure. so disrespectful of a female that's been in the business as long as I have been. And at that point, he was a greenhorn. He knew he was going to have a lot of power, that they were going to give him the strap. But at that point, I've been in this business for a long time. I have respect, and what he did was very, very wrong from a respect standpoint, from a sexual harassment standpoint, whatever you want to look at it, it was wrong. But my joke, to kind of bring levity to it so I don't get so darn upset about it, is that I'm like, if you're going to show me your junk, at least let it be impressive. And so, like, I don't know if you know what a pink feeder mouse is that they sell in animal shops to like feed snakes.
Yeah, definitely.
They're like the mice before they get their little hair on them.
Yeah.
Well, that's basically what that vision was akin to.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, a pink feeder mouse. And so I'm thinking, like, wow, why? Not that it would have been any less disrespectful or, less sexual harassing had he been hung like a horse. But come on. So, yeah, that's my only levity where that's concerned. But I just, those two, I think they're made for each other. I'll put it that way.
No, I understand. I definitely do. And, it always amazed me, too, that two of the most beautiful women in wrestling, you and her, were attached to these guys who came out very flamboyant at the time with Goldust and Mark Merrow. Like, as a kid, I can never figure that out. Like, why are these two beautiful women with these two guys who might be, kind of gay, to be honest with you? So, like, it just, at the time. But switching on that, though, so it always amazed me. Sure.
Let me say something, since you just mentioned that. So, like, it was not the company's idea to have Marlena come in and neutralize the gayness of what they wanted Dustin to put out as Goldust. But when I came up with the complete idea of this androgynous female to go with this androgynous male, they liked that, how that neutralized everything. That's not your mom, you little baby. That's not your mama. Hers not here. It's okay. I'm babysitting Dakota's little Pippin, and my mom has a notification when anyone drives on the property, and he just heard it, and he's thinking that's his mama.
Oh, that's too cute. So let me. I'm gonna go ahead. I was gonna ask you this then, because this is good, because this kind of transitions to the next question perfectly. So, this was really unique, right? Because Goldust was this hated heel, all right? Like you said, they brought you in to kind of neutralize things. And then after about a year of him being like one of the most hated men in wrestling, all of a sudden they decide to turn him face, pull the curtain back, say, hey, they're actually really married. Look at their adorable little daughter. Whose idea was it to pull back that curtain and let the fans cheer for you guys?
Well, I don't know if you recall the angle that we were in at that point. Do you remember?
With Jerry Lawler, I believe, like questioned his right, and then Triple H.
With Pillman.
Oh, okay. Well, that was later on. Go right ahead though.
But we did not come out as a couple until we were doing that whole. No, you're right. No, we did do an interview where we. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the interview we did where Dustin takes his wedding ring and throws it, and that's when we had to flip places with Brian Pillman leaving us on this earth. God
right.
rest in peace. I'm so sad about that. Remind me at some point. Let's talk about Brian Pillman Jr.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So in order to to turn us face, you had to kind of have that kind of interview and realize, okay, this is just a character, right? Dustin, although the things he said in that interview, where we were in, I think, the makeup room, we were sitting there in the makeup room, was very, very serious and honest stuff he was saying. Like that was a whole lot of shoot that he was doing right there. So, and a lot of what he said was true. I think everybody kind of naysayed Dustin when it came to Goldust, and I give him so much credence and kudos that he just kept his head down and just worked on. Please don't make any double entendre jokes about that.
No, you're good.
He kept his head down. He worked on that character and didn't let anyone having an issue with it bother him. And he made it into one of the most iconic characters, not only back in the Attitude Era, but carrying forward into other eras. And tall, 6'5", tobacco chewing Texan, and he's pulling this character off. Like, who would not find that amazing? I give him massive kudos.
Yeah, absolutely. And and we could talk about it now too. So you guys, were out as that couple for a little bit there, 4 or 5 months when they bring in, the storyline of Brian Pillman. So Dustin Rhodes loses a match at the September pay-per-view that year, and then you had to be with, Brian Pillman for 30 days. It was already out there. A lot of people knew about the past relationship that you guys had. So as you're doing these vignettes, where you're in, sexy lingerie or you're in bed with them and everything, was it ever uncomfortable? And did you have to tell, the babysitters, like you said, you had those live-in nannies for Dakota. Did you have to make sure that, for no reason she was watching at home?
Well, she was in bed by that point at home, but okay. You have to remember this. My child literally from a year and a half old grew up in the business, and she knew, like, by the time she was pretty much 4 years old, like, what a gimmick was and the difference between a gimmick and a storyline and real life and whatever. So, she'd been around it. It was not something, if there was going to be something crazy, absolutely. They knew to make sure she didn't see anything, but most of the time on a school night like that, she would have already been in bed. And but yes, we would give the nanny and or family members a heads up. Although it's interesting, when we did the interview after and we put Luna with Dustin instead of me going with Brian, I had family members calling me saying, "Oh my God, are y'all all right? Is everything okay?" Which I took as a great compliment because I thought, okay, we acted well. That means we acted well. So,
well, and it's crazy to me too because, not a lot of people know this. People who have listened to your interviews in the past know this story, but the real thing, from what I understand, okay, was that the day that Brian passed away. Had that not happened, you and Dustin were supposed to renew your vows, and you were gonna say no, and then you were gonna turn heel. The original plan was for you to turn heel with Brian Pillman, and you guys were gonna run down that angle. So obviously, when go ahead.
Well, Brian was going to, when it came time in the vow renewal ceremony of, if there's anyone here that sees any reason for these two not to be joined together, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. That's when Brian was going to come down the ramp. And, of course, he and Dustin would get into it. And I was going to end up, like, Dustin was going to be beating the dog crap out of Brian. And I was going to throw my wedding-dressed body across Brian's and say, no, don't hurt him. And then I was going to say, in the 30 days that I was with him, I grew to love him, and I'm in love with him, and I want to be with him. And, oh, yeah, Dustin would have been a face like nobody's face at that point, right? Sure. Some woman treat him that way. But yeah, I'm more sad that Brian is not here. But in terms of just the business, that was one of those storylines that would have been so cool had it played out,
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. And sadly, Brian Pillman passed away. There's the story that I heard you tell, the night before his passing. He couldn't get a ride, he was looking for a ride and just was in a bad way, for you to get that news, how hard was it, not just because you used to date him, I get all that, and that's fine, but how hard was it, as a fellow human being, you struck me as a person with a giant heart, a very genuine human being, how hard was it to get that news? I mean, that had to shake everybody.
Well, I mean, absolutely, and I guess, when anyone passes in a way like that, you always wonder, could I have done something? And I really felt like in that moment, like we could have done something. Of course, we had no idea, but I promise you, if Dustin, Dustin said no, and I really was not going to go against my husband and say, well, come on, let my ex-boyfriend ride with us. Gosh darn it. I totally respected what Dustin said and whatever, but I really believe had Dustin known that, hey, he's not going to be with us tomorrow, and just being nice to him tonight may keep him from going to the edge. So often, and this is something that I try to explain to people, at a certain point when, whether it's boys and girls in the industry or people walking down the street, there comes a time where if they're taking alcohol or if they're drinking alcohol for and to party and whatever, okay, well and good, whatever, don't do it too much, don't be crazy. But when you're doing that stuff alone in a hotel room, all you're doing is just trying to numb the pain, whether the pain is physical, whether the pain is emotional, mental. I always say that everyone has a hole in their soul, and some people's holes are larger and darker. Some people's are not that large and dark, but some people don't learn how to, I guess, fill in that hole as they grow, as they get older. Some people don't have a hole in their soul until they're in their 30s and something happens and this, huge crevasse develops in their guts. But the point I'm making is he would not have gone to his room by himself and over-medicated, over-drank, over whatever, had he been okay. He was not okay. And you never know when one word that you say to somebody is the difference between life and death. I mean, a smile literally could change someone's life, whether they stay on earth or whether they decide to say goodbye to this earth. So that not only did it bother me, it bothers me to this day. I can't go back and change what we did or what we didn't do, but yet it bothers me. And the way I feel like I can best make it better is loving little Brian, and supporting him. I really believe he's going to be so successful in this industry. But yeah, I'm proud of him. And, it's nice when he and I talk about his dad, when we have conversations about that. And he's asked me some pretty tough questions, to be honest.
Sure.
And, I've told him, I'm like, I will tell you the honest truth as long as that's what you want to hear from me. So, I think I chased rabbits again, but get me back on the...
No, you're totally okay, and to me, so for a while now, so everything got blown up. The original plan gets blown up, and then to me, it seems like they were scrapping. They were trying to figure out, okay, what the hell are we going to do for a little bit? So they take you completely off of TV, and then they put you back into this gimmick, where you're going to be with Val Venus, and then you end up, a storyline, you end up pregnant, and then something that I strongly disagree with, and me as a wrestling fan, I understand it's gimmicked, I understand its storyline, I get all that. But to me, miscarriage is a very serious thing. There's a lot of women out there who try to get pregnant and can't, or they get pregnant and they lose the baby right away, and it's heartbreaking. It's unbelievably heartbreaking. And this is not your fault, trust me, but I was 100% against, and I was horrified by the gimmick and the storyline of you being pregnant with Val Venus and then having the miscarriage. How did you, as a mother of a real child, having Dakota, how did you feel about that? Because from what I've read, you were against it.
Oh my God. Okay, so that to this day is one of the storylines that I fought Vince Russo over, and I lost. Obviously, I lost because it happened, right? It was so tone deaf to women. And for me personally, even though I told you, like, Dakota gets the difference between gimmick and real life storylines and stuff like that, I'm like, that's just one of those things that if her, she's in school now, and if one of her little friends says, oh my gosh, your mommy's pregnant, and oh my gosh, your mommy lost her baby, and like, that's not a conversation I want to sit down and like try to explain, why it was even part of what I did in that character. That pissed me off. It upset me. And yeah, I fought it and I lost, obviously.
And again, it was right around the same time that something else happened where, as a wrestling fan, that kind of broke my heart. And obviously, no pun intended, but Owen Hart. So, 18 months earlier, his brother, gets screwed, the old Montreal screw job, and kind of rocks everybody to their core, fans and performers alike. And then here we go, this man falls to his tragic death in front of a live crowd. Again, I got to ask you, do you feel that show should have been stopped? And even if it shouldn't have been stopped, how hard was that to cope with? Because I cannot even begin to imagine.
It was god awful. When Owen passed by a lot of us standing there, he was on the gurney on his way to the into the ambulance. There was way too much time for us to stand there and look at him as he was passing by. It was god awful. He was blue. It was just horrible. And yeah, you have a death of a wrestler like that, and I 100% believe we should not have gone on with that show.
As a fan, we didn't care anymore. We wanted the show to be stopped. I remember being, with other fans. Now as a journalist, I can't even imagine being there covering a show like that. I probably would have walked out because it goes past entertainment at that point. And then, so for you, it was a little while again, the Pretty Mean Sisters kind of had its passing. And then eventually...
That name, by the way, hated the name. That's another thing I really fought for and lost. I hated the name PMS.
It seems like lazy booking.
Yeah, right? Lazy something.
And it just, it's just the generational gap now between now and then. And I have a few questions left, and I thank you again. And it, these questions are all kind of geared in that thinking. Here we are now with the Me Too movement, okay? And me being a daddy of two little girls who I absolutely adore. We cover a lot of women's sports here. That's all very important. But it got to the point there in the late 90s or early 2000s where all they were going to do was treat you like a sexual object. And obviously, you can't say no because this is your job, right? So you get a match. Number one, you get a match at WrestleMania, which is a big payday allegedly for wrestlers, and so it's you and the Cat who, this was two guys could have been in that match or whatnot, but they put you in this match and they don't even really let you wrestle. I mean, they pretty much strip you half naked and they say, okay, the first woman to put her butt in the other woman's face wins. I mean, what goes through your mind when you get pitched this idea? Is it kind of like, well, just another day at the office?
So it's the kind of thing where you are like, how many people get to be on the card at WrestleMania, right?
Right.
It's a very prestigious thing to be on. And for that, I was very happy. However, I always hated that gimmicky stuff. Not that I didn't have respect for the other women, but I hated wrestling them. I hated doing crap with the Cat. I thought it was always so cheesy and low rent, I guess. Yep. But again, it's like, I would just try to tell myself, Terri, you are being this character, you're either the she-devil or you're this or that. Sink yourself into it, be as convincing as possible, be a heel or a face, whatever you're supposed to do. And know that when you go home, that you have not, intentionally hurt or done anything to anyone that was egregious and terrible. But yeah, I hated that. Like, I loved. If you've ever heard an interview with me, I love taking bumps, right?
Sure.
But hated wrestling, and even more than wrestling, hated all those silly matches that I got put into.
Well, you look at it now, and the women, to me, are some of the best athletes on the card. The most amazing matches: Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, all of them. It's incredible, and having that be the main event last year with Becky Lynch and Charlotte, and even Ronda Rousey, that to me was just amazing. And then I look back at it, I'm like, that's crazy to think, how far we've come in a good way. The last 17, 18 years. There was a storyline where the Cat, Stacey Carter, had the whatever it was, like everybody's in a pool in a nightgown, and then she takes off her bra and she's completely nude, and you could see her boobs on live TV. Like, yeah. Is that something you would have did if they asked you to, or would you put your foot down?
No, and the only time that ever happened that it even looked like I did that was in Shotgun Saturday Night with where Kishu was called the Sultan back then.
Sure.
And I had on pasties covering me. So yeah, I would have never done that. Are you there?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know why I thought I lost you again. And so she that was something she liked doing. She did it again over at Insurrection with me. I don't know if you remember that pay-per-view in England.
Yes.
That was the pay-per-view where Brock exposed himself.
Oh, that was it then. Yeah, that was Insurrection.
Yeah. So anyway, that was not something I ever understood. But hey, to each their own.
Did you get to pick out your own outfits at least? I mean, did you have some say in it, or was it basically like, okay, this is what you're going to wear and that's all there is to it?
So let me say this to you. When they tell you you're going to be in a paddle on the pole thong match, you pretty much know you're wearing a thong. Yeah. Which thong you wear is up to you. But, yeah, you're pretty much told, the thong-a-thong thing at Divas Undressed. Yep. Yeah, you're wearing a thong. So, yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, it's sold, though, and the one thing, too, as we kind of move towards the end of this interview, I thank you again for taking some moments here with me on this Sunday night. The biggest thing as a wrestling fan growing up, we always wondered what would happen if WCW fought WWF. And not just the Monday Night Wars, but if they really had a cross-promotional thing. So in March of 2001, right before WrestleMania 17, here we go. You're working with Perry Saturn at the time eventually, but they do this alliance angle, and it's enormous. But it never had that payoff like all the wrestling fans wanted, WWF versus WCW. It got so watered down, they ended up moving, Stone Cold to WCW and Kurt Angle to the WCW side. It didn't have that major payoff like everybody thought. Why do you think that was?
I wish I had a good answer for you. I don't, and for me to give you an answer that is not an educated one would be like me being a pundit like the rest. I don't know. I don't honestly know what that didn't. I'll tell you this. I was very sad the day that WCW became absorbed by WWF because, I'm sorry, that took every ounce of bargaining power away from every one of the boys. And when I say the boys, that means the girls too. And it made it to where, competition makes everything really fun, right? And all that competition went by the wayside. And that's another reason why. And it's not just because, Cody and Dustin are, with AEW, but that's another reason I'm thrilled that they're doing well, because the boys need that, they really do. And the fans, I think, need that as well. So, yeah.
Now, last question for you, and thank you for coming on the show tonight. Much appreciated.
My pleasure.
And I could ask you a million bra and panty questions, but to me, that doesn't matter. I'd much rather talk to you about wrestling. So,
right? I would like to answer about wrestling.
Yeah, I'm sure, right? So you touched on it there real briefly, and that's where I want to end the interview is AEW. Number one, do you think AEW, with the structure that it has, could be a serious competitor to the WWE one day, if not already? And then number two, would you ever consider working for them, if everything was okay with you and Dustin and Cody and everything was fine, would you like to come back into the industry?
First of all, let me answer the first question you asked. I think they're already a major deal to WWE because WWE's fans and their ratings are sliding big time. And if you'll notice, they are paying attention to what AEW is doing. And it is making them nervous. I think that is wonderful. That doesn't mean I don't love my WWE family. That just means it's great for everybody. The bigger and badder and better that AEW can get, that will make WWE become that much better as well. Because everyone wants to rise to the occasion and be the best, right? So I just think that it is...
Sure.
I think it's amazing that, here's the way I see AEW. I see it as you're getting some old school, you're getting some new school, and you're getting some future school that, might not have even been done before that we're all, being privy to. So, yeah, I couldn't be more thrilled. As far as working with them, I don't know. I certainly would never, ever, ever in a million years ever wrestle any human being ever again as long as I live. I didn't like it then. I wouldn't like it now. The only way I would come back would be in a, maybe either in a backstage interview or in a show that... I don't know if you remember me and the coach and I doing Excess.
Absolutely. Yeah. You were incredible.
Thank you. I had fun doing that show. I had a blast doing that show. Doing something like that for AEW, I would consider managing again. But yeah, that's right now. I'm really putting a lot of my focus on my live stream that I do 3 nights a week, Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday. I usually start at between 7 and 7:30. However, I'm going to start a little bit late tonight because I did not get ready in time before you and I started our little party.
Uh-oh.
And so I'm going to start tonight at 7:45, but normally it's between 7 and 7:30. I always go on and post on Twitter saying, what time I'll be live, whether it's 7 or 7:30. But yeah, I would love it. It costs nothing to go and be a part of Twitch. And all Twitch is just a streaming platform for those who are like, what is Twitch TV? It's a streaming platform. And, there's never one night that's the same. Some nights we watch bare knuckle fighting on together. One night we were watching horse training. One night, it runs the gamut. Some nights we don't watch anything together. We just talk and they ask me a million questions and we laugh. And like tonight, I've got so much stuff to tell them. And so, in order to find me there, you didn't ask, but do you mind if I'm
Please plug away. I want you to plug everything you can. Go right ahead. Hey, I'm already making you late. I might as well put some money in your pocket. Go right ahead.
It's all good. It's all good. No, I love the platform. I love what I'm doing, so I want people to be a part of it. So it is www.twitch.tv/the Terri Runnels. In fact, all of my social media is the Terri Runnels. So yeah, and all you have to do is, like, if you're shy and you don't want to ask a question, but you just want to watch, you can do that. All you have to do is basically go on and, I think, give a username and create a password, and that's it. And then, go to my channel and hang out with me for, most nights it's like an hour and a half to 2 hours. One day I did a 12-hour marathon. Yeah, you just never know what's going to happen. So, I would love, love, love for any and everyone that's listening to your show to join in. And if they do join in and ask a question, I would love, 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 for your sake, for them to say, hey, I heard it on Vince's show.
Yeah, Keon Sports.
Yeah.
Hey, it's been great catching up with you tonight. I appreciate it. Let me tell you two things. Number one, if you do hook up with AEW for that Access show and you need a co-host, I am very available, and I think me and you do an amazing job. Remember, Vince McMahon, it must mean something.
Exactly.
And number two, the day that you get inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, and I'm positive that's going to happen, I will buy a front row ticket. How does that sound?
You'll buy a what?
I will buy a front row ticket to watch you get inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Bless your bones. That's very sweet. I don't know if that will ever happen, but I really appreciate you saying that. And yeah, that's so sweet of you. Yeah, you're right. You will be the second Vinnie Mac in my life. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I won't even force you to wear a thong. You're good to go there. But no.
Awesome. Give your baby girls a hug from an old lady named Terri, Marlena, whatever else you want to call me, She-Devil. Don't even say that, because then they'll go, but why was she called She-Devil, Dad?
I'll tell them that story in a couple of years. But I want you to have a safe night, a wonderful time, moving forward. And honestly, from Keon Sports, we wish you nothing but the best. Is there any last message you want to tell all your fans listening at home?
No, I just really thank them for being there and for all the fun that I've shared with them over the years.
Hey,
and hope to keep sharing with them.
Plug your cameo too, guys. Listen to her cameo. Go ahead.
That's right. Okay. So I've got cameo that I do. The videos, they're like usually between a minute and 2 minutes. And I love it when wives surprise their husbands or vice versa. I love it when it's like, oh, my dad, his birthday's coming up. Can you do a video for him? And so basically when you go on these platforms, one is called celebvm.com, one is called cameo.com. You get to kind of tell me exactly what you want me to say in the video. And then I try to create whatever it is that you want me to do for this person. Some people order them for themselves. Some people order them for coworkers, friends, family. But yeah, they're so much fun. And yeah, I love doing them. I charge a little extra if for the people that ask me to smoke a cigar and be a little Marlena-esque, because I either have to take a cigar out of my humidor or, go get one. I always charge extra for that and extra to go and put on the Marlena gimmick and everything else. But it's not that much more. And if you're really wanting Marlena, I guess it's worth it. So.
What's your favorite kind of cigar?
Right now, I'm loving I always love the Padron Anniversario. I love, Rocky Patel's a dear friend of mine, but I love Edge, Maduro wrapper, Battalion, which is a 60 ring gauge. I love a big ring gauge. And the Rocky Patel Royale, I love that cigar as well. So those are what I'm smoking right now.
Well, you enjoy those dogs, that 4-pound Chihuahua and that 100-pound dog, and you have an awesome night, okay? From everybody at Keon Sports, me, my wife, and my 2 daughters, thank you very much.
God bless. Thank you.
God bless as well. Bye now. So that was Terri Runnels. Very, very awesome to speak with her. And really, She said a lot of good stuff there, clearly about Brian Pillman and Dustin and the different things that went on with WCW towards the tail end, and then her run in WWF, as it was called. And, she made a good point here, guys. We cover a lot of women's athletics, a ton. It's a big thing that we do. And, just the fact now that not nearly as much do they treat women like objects. Now they actually let them wrestle, and they're great. There's some of the best matches on the card, to be honest with you. So just how far it's come. But I would also say, though, look, listen, to me, some of the best years in WWF history, and people will disagree, and that's fine, but to me at least, some of the best years were 95 through 99, and that's right where she made it big, into early 2000. But those years with Goldust as a top heel, and Triple H getting his start, and Razor Ramon and Scott Hall, finding their legs as Diesel, and Razor Ramon and Scott Hall is the same person. Sorry, Kevin Nash is Diesel, Scott Hall is Razor Ramon. Obviously, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, The Undertaker. Such a great era of wrestling. I miss it dearly. It's not even close to that. Hopefully AEW could bring that back. And AEW, I gotta say, does that with their women. They have unbelievable sex appeal, but also they let them wrestle, and they wrestle well. Now WWE, the performers are way better. I mean, it's not even close when it comes to the female wrestling. NXT and WWE's women's divisions are out of this world good. AEW has a long way to catch up in that aspect. I think AEW is every bit as good right now as WWE. I enjoy their product better, but that is actually the only division they need a lot of work on. Their tag team division is way better than WWE. Some of the singles are better, and we'll see how that goes there. But all that aside, as Marlena would say, I'm chasing a rabbit here, so I will get back on track. That will do it for Keon Sports. If you want to email our show with any suggestions of who we should have on next, let me know. Hopefully this week we've been reaching out to John Fitch at the MMA world and the UFC and now Bellator, as well as Pat Tanaka, another WWF legend for you, Chris Labine from the UFC. Some big names coming up this week, so stay with us. Hector Guerrero as well. For Keon Sports, we want to thank Terri Runnels and Marlena. This has been Vince McKee. Have a great night.